Okay. Welcome to our Backyard Brothers podcast. We are one brother short today. I don't know how it is in Virginia, but we have an estimated 6 to 12 inches is what the official um, line is for my area. 6 to 12 inches of snow projected tonight, tomorrow, and Friday. Uh, and so I doubt that's what it is in Virginia. I know that's not what it is in wherever Dustin is right now, Bahamas or whatever it is. So, we can send him some hate messages if we want after this. But
I,
so
I think I think Virginia is probably closer to where Dustin is. It's today was 75, tomorrow it's almost 80. So
yeah, not
Okay.
here. It's winter's last gasp before spring starts. So yeah. Okay, we're gonna finish NFL review today. Obviously, some free agency has already happened, and so we can talk about the some of the free agency moves and things like that as they've already happened and what they should do for the drafts. But before we get there, Cody has a memory that we want to cover today.
yeah, so I kind of decided to go a different route today. I think typically it's been almost unwritten rule in a way that you kind of do a memory around the same thing you're talking about. But today I kind of wanted to talk about some of the athletes that kind of go under the radar or that go unnoticed a little bit. And probably the biggest one is Alex Honnold. And a lot of people will recognize that name, especially if they've watched some of the Netflix series. I think it's Netflix, yeah, Netflix series of Free Solo.
Documentary,
So what's that?
documentary.
Documentary.
I
Thank
don't,
you.
I don't think it's a series.
That's what I meant. Sorry, documentary on Netflix. Um, in 2017, Alex Honnold did a free solo, and that means without any wires or any type of help gear to help yourself climb up, any safety net, nothing. It's just you climbing up your hands and knees, relying on your own strength. And he did it with El Capitan, which I think is I might be corrected here. I think it's in Colorado. I'm not sure if that's correct. No, where is that at?
In California.
Okay, I'm not sure why I thought it was Colorado,
Yeah.
but he scaled El Capitan, which is a huge mountain first cliffside. And I know, and you might share a little bit of this, Scott, but I know Scott did some mountain climbing a while ago. I've done a little bit of mountain climbing, but nothing crazy. But to free solo, that is a whole other fear of mine just unlocking. I can't even imagine doing that without any help. And I think to be able to do rock climbing, especially without any safety harness, is probably the most physically fit anyone can be. That requires immense endurance. It requires immense strength and stamina control, breath control, you name it. I feel like they have to master everything. And so Alex Honnold, I think, might be quietly one of the best athletes in the world because of what he did and what he can do. You can watch the Netflix documentary about it. It's really interesting. It's really cool. It kind of makes you feel like you're there with him, and it gets you feeling as if you're gonna fall as well or something. And but it's just amazing what he was able to do. I don't remember how. I know it's huge. I don't remember how many feet. It's thousands of feet, I think. Um, but yeah, I wanted to share that one. And I don't think a lot of people don't think of Alex Honnold a lot. Don't think of him as an athlete. Uh, as the traditional word goes, but he definitely is. Um, and so I wanted to think about that. I kind of wanted to think about other people who go a little unnoticed in what they do. So I'd like to hear your guys' thoughts on rock climbing or on free solo, on Alex Honnold, or on anyone else that might come to your mind.
Um, yeah, it's in Northern California. Yosemite National Park is where El Capitan is, and it's 3,000 feet from base to summit. So it's tall and it's a monolith. It's like a rock wall that's at some point it even goes inverted a little bit. And so when you're near the very top of it, it's you're like upside down at one point trying to get over a specific ledge. And it's uh, while I agree that rock climbers, free solo rock climbers, are probably one of the most physically fit athletes. It also requires a certain death wish. uh, and I'll never understand it. I don't think it's a good idea. A lot of people have died doing free solo. Obviously, if uh, if you continue to free solo, you're going to make a mistake at some point and you're going to die. That's what happens. A lot of people die doing that, and there's a certain death wish that has to accompany that, or at least an adrenaline junkie beyond any other type of adrenaline junkie. And so um, I would never do that. I have so how long ago was this? More than yeah, not quite 10 years, 9 years ago. Um, I uh, I was a reporter living in Wyoming, and I climbed Devil's Tower, which is over there on the border of Wyoming and South Dakota. I climbed it with a guy that had been climbing it every month for like 6 years, and I think he's still doing it every month. And so now it's been 16 years or whatever that he climbs it every month. And he does not free solo it, by the way. He does it with perfect climbing equipment and things like that. And I'll tell you, uh, rock climbing takes you to your core. uh, there's nothing quite like it. It will take you to the core of who you are. You will say nasty words to yourself and to the rock. You'll curse the mountain all the way up as you fall and dangle in free air, and then try to climb the whole thing. And so I have a lot of respect for rock climbers that do that on a however often basis that they do it, because it's so difficult, it's so physically taxing, it's so mentally taxing. um, and yeah, it beat me up. I mean, I think I still have a couple scars from that trip up there, and it's one of those. It's literally a once in a lifetime opportunity for me, because I don't think I'll ever do it again. But I'm so glad that I did it. And as far as my journalism career, which is kind of over, as I'm now working in public relations and marketing and things like that. But as far as my journalism career, it's still the story that I'm most proud of that I've ever done. Because I had to experience something and do it with someone that's doing it, because that's how I decided I'd tell the story. You can't tell the story from the sidelines when you're about a rock climber. You have to go do it with them. And so I was really proud of that story in particular, that, that experience.
That's awesome. I was looking up Alex. It was Honnold, right?
Mhm.
And he was on the Joe Rogan Experience, is where I kind of watched him. So I didn't really watch the documentary, and I wasn't like watching him climb. I wanted to kind of learn about the person that was talking about what he was doing. And one of the things that he said that I could really relate to was he doesn't really have too much regular anxiety about like day-to-day life, that, almost dying because you made a mistake should give you anxiety, not whether or not some person at work likes you, or if you're going to be late to a job. Like in the scale of human existence, that should not be a cause for anxiety. But the way he would manage it is by nearly dying, and that's would sharpen his focus. And I could really relate to that, being that, like, I've fought people in a cage and stuff, and that a lot of people look at that as like, whoa, you're crazy, and how is that your choice of outlet or what? And I felt like when I was listening to him talk, the things that he got out of the dangers of it were actually like really cool coping mechanisms, is how I saw it. And just I also wanted to touch on a different athlete, because I wanted to add that to the memory, as well as Cody was talking about. I did want to show respect to Alex. I thought he was an incredible person in the way that he portrayed himself and the way that he talked about what he did. But I also have to shout out David Goggins. He isn't like not known. He was a Navy SEAL, had completed multiple marathons, one of which where he had shin splints and broken legs. Like literally both of his legs were broken. He duct taped his legs, finished a race. I feel like any human willing to put their body through that deserves a shout out, no matter if they're famous already or not. If The Rock had done this, I would be talking about him. He put himself through SEALs training 4 times. He had failed, but continuously went back until he finally became a Navy SEAL, one of the first African Americans to complete SEALs training. go through Hell Week, and then do multiple classifications that he really didn't even need just to prove that he could do it. An incredible story that I think everybody should check out. His language isn't necessarily for everybody. He's very free with curse words. But if you look at the person he was to the person he became, definitely worth looking up and checking out his story. And the guy Alex, in a very different way, reminded me of David, and that's why I wanted to bring him up.
Yeah, and I mean, you both brought up someone that kind of a different kind of athlete, and if I could as well, because what you said, Nancy, now reminded me of another one, and it kind of comes full circle because I would, Free Solo won the Oscar a couple of years ago for best documentary feature, and these last Oscars there was another film called Nyad about Diana Nyad. If anyone knows who she is the only person who has successfully free swam from Cuba to Florida. Um, it's like free swam, like no net, and so swimming through jellyfish and sharks and things like that from Havana, Cuba, down to the Florida Keys, and it's I can't remember the exact mileage, but I want to say it's like 110 miles going
That's insane.
from Cuba to Florida, and the dedication that takes. And I think she successfully did it on her fifth try, because the previously she was stung by jellyfish and or just completely blacked out from exhaustion and all that. But doing that, those three athletes that do these crazy things, they deserve to be mentioned. Yeah.
Certainly.
And she did it when she was 60 years old, by the way. She was 65,
cow.
I think. So
You
yeah.
say that up front, bro. That's an upfront. Oh yeah.
Let's
By
not
the way,
forget to say.
she's 60.
Yeah. In her 60s, she successfully did it.
That's
Yeah.
incredible.
So
That's that just reminds me, like I feel like swimming is what makes you realize how far a mile really is. Because driving, obviously you feel like miles are pretty short. Running, you're kind of like, okay, a mile's a little bit longer, but then you swim a mile, and you just feel like, when does the mile end? And it's like you never reach it. But then 110 miles. Nope, I'm dead at mile 2.
Well,
in the ocean and those big waves too. So yeah.
Getting tired equals being dead. It's not the
Yeah.
same as like a foot race or any other type of race that requires endurance. Like, you're gonna drown if you don't continue to move forward. And so your body at some point can literally shut down. And so I think that's a great addition to the athletes that we were mentioning, Scott.
Yeah, I definitely like that. I'm sorry if I cut you off, Scott.
You're good.
I was just gonna
You're
finish with one more thought. Is kind of going off of that. What's her name again? You just mentioned. Sorry.
Nyad.
Nyad. Okay.
Nyad.
With Nyad, the idea of you have to keep going forward. You have to keep swimming. Your body could shut down. And I often think about rock climbing. The times that I've done it a few times, I just think of, well, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, that is dope.
I just think about, well, if I'm rock climbing and I'm done, I'll go back down the rock, or I'll just say, all right, I'm done, and kind of push off and dangle for a second. I think, wait, Alex couldn't do that.
No.
If you get tired, suck it up, right? I mean, he could take a little break maybe and find a good spot to kind of just rest, but you still have to hold on, and you can't go back down. You can't go back down. You have to keep going back up. And so it's really, really surprises me, and it makes me feel that anxiety you're kind of talking about, Yancey. I mean, I'm feeling it myself thinking about it. It is a death wish to an extent, but I mean, I can't imagine the kinds of things that you learn about yourself, or you learn about life and just the human experience. I feel like that he probably understands life to an extent that we might never.
Who was I don't know why I feel like I have to mention this, but Scott, I think you'll know. The movie was based on 72 hours, cut his arm off in a.
Aaron Ralston.
Aaron Ralston. He was just like hiking, right? He was just out walking. I feel like those type of people that just have a spirit about them, like So he survived the instance he was in, and these people willingly put themselves in it. So it's definitely different. But I think those types of instincts are built into certain people who just are born with those characteristics. Never say die attitude. Yeah. That might kill those people, but I'm not those people. I'm gonna do these things because I want to. Like I have a desire, and that I think it's just a special person. All of the people that we mentioned, I think, are just a special breed of human. You know.
Great memories. We spent a little bit longer on that than normal, but I think that was important. So before moving on to NFL, just wanted to share that I went to a Nuggets game this last weekend. First time I've been to a Nuggets game in years. So it's been 6 or 7 years since I've gone to one, and so it was fun. They played the Jazz, and first half they dominated. They went 14 of 20 from 3-point range in the whole first half combined. That's an insane. Missing only 6 the whole first half. They cooled down in the second half, but they still finished, I think, 57% from 3 for the game, and they won. They won pretty easily. They never trailed in that game. The Jazz were missing Lauri Markkanen, and so it was they're missing their best player, and the Nuggets have their full complement of players, and so they're already a better team than the Jazz, and so that's just the way that it kind of went. So, yeah. Jamal Murray had 37 points in that game, I think. So Nikola Jokic had, I think, 26 or 27. So good game for both. It was fun.
Nice.
Okay, so over to the NFL preview. Starting with the Denver Broncos. So this guy is no longer there. And it's kind of a crying shame what the Broncos did to him. So we'll get to that in a little bit, but obviously he didn't play very well, but his numbers were better than a lot of people think, really. Here's your offensive playmakers. Jerry Jeudy's no longer there. Offensive line was not very good. Defensive line here. Linebackers. Secondary was excellent with both Patrick Surtain and Justin Simmons there. That's the best unit on the team. Michael Burton at fullback, Marvin Mims at returner were both very good. And here's your defensive depth. Long snapper Mitchell Fraboni was a Pro Bowler. And your coaching staff all returns. So they'll all be there. So stop sharing. Let's talk about the Broncos. What went wrong this season, or what happened with the Russell Wilson fiasco? Because it seems like the Broncos really dealt underhanded on what happened here, because they forced Russell Wilson to try to take a pay cut, and when they wouldn't, they released him, and all these other things. Obviously, a power struggle between Sean Payton and Russell Wilson, and the coach is going to win that. So, any thoughts?
If you don't have the numbers to back up the argument with the coach, like you're saying, hey, I can perform, but this guy's holding me back, which you're not going to do with Sean Payton. I think even though there's been some things you can dislike about his career, he's still a great coach. Overall, he knows football, I think. And Russell declined. He played well, and he played incredible before, and each season after has played slightly worse, in my opinion. And it's not like he's just been inconsistent. He's consistently declined, and I think a lot of that had to do with how mobile he had to be in the early parts of his career. And I think that the Broncos organization saw that and noticed, hey, honestly, I'd rather throw $35 million or $85 million out of the window than deal with this guy on us waiting for him to have a better season when he's just going to decline again. Let's dump him on the Steelers or whoever will take him. Mm-hmm. That's my take on the whole Russell Wilson thing. He didn't have the numbers to back an argument with the coach, and he hasn't had numbers for a couple years now.
Yeah, I agree with you. I except for this last season he did have some better numbers, not comparable numbers to his early years in Seattle, but compared to last year, a lot better. I mean, he 66% completion rate, over 3,000 passing yards, 26 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. Did pretty well in most respects. I think the offensive line, although injured as well, took a lot of didn't take a lot of the heat that they probably needed to take because he had 45 sacks. That's also him trying to run around. He doesn't have the mobility he used to have, and so I mean, I think it's. I see fault on both sides. I think that Sean Payton and the staff needed to give him another at least one more year. I mean, first off, you guys put yourselves in a deep hole to begin with. I mean, that's you guys' own fault, but I mean, give him one more year, see if you guys can give him some more weapons, help the offensive line get a little bit better. I mean, give him at least one more year. I think he deserved that. But at the same time, I think that Russell Wilson has a how do I say this? A side of his personality he's hidden a lot, and I think that was a branding of himself that he's been focusing on, rather than focusing on I'm going to get my game better. I'm going to be out there, be a team player. A lot of three brand or whatever it is. It's been a lot of himself. Russ, what is it? Russ Inc. As Sean Payton said, there was a lot of that, and I think he needed to focus more on the team. And so I see fault on both sides, but I would lean more towards the franchise probably needing to stay with him at least one more year, give him what he needs.
Yeah. So and I would agree more with Cody here, but only because the numbers, the financial numbers say so. Because the Broncos don't have any cap space to go get a veteran quarterback. They have to draft one. They're going to have to draft a rookie and play him this year, unless you want to get a guy, essentially a bridge quarterback, knowing that you're going to win 3, 4, 5 games this year. So you're better off trying to go for broke and draft a guy that you think could be a really good player. For example, a lot of people are pointing toward oh boy, who's the who are the quarterbacks coming out?
Then we
And
got JJ McCarthy, Bo Nix, Michael Penix,
that
uh,
one, Michael Penix.
Michael
That's
Penix,
who
Washington.
they're pointing towards, is the Washington quarterback, and saying that's what I've been reading a lot, is trying to pair those guys, Michael Penix with the Broncos, and see if he's a spark plug that can get that team over the hump on a cheaper salary, because they can't afford to go out and pay a bunch of people any money, because they're on the hook to Russell Wilson for about $50 million this year. So
As good as Phoenix is, I think it would be a disservice to put that kid on the Broncos with the problems that we have on the line. I don't want it to come off that I think it's all Russell Wilson's fault that we didn't do well. That's just my opinion on that situation between him and Sean. He didn't have a lot of help. Russell was having passes dropped that shouldn't have been dropped, and he was hurried a lot of the time. So I think putting Penix Jr. in there wouldn't. I mean, it would. He could prove me entirely wrong and have a great season, but I think he would end up injured there with no support, like nobody to go to. He tries to scramble like he would in college, and somebody puts the wood on him, and that's kind of that. And I'd hate to see that happen, even for the team I like. I certainly hate to see him go there.
yeah. Okay. Moving on to the Kansas City Chiefs, Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs. Obviously, this guy's pretty good. Proved it throughout the playoffs and the Super Bowl, and he's taking a pay cut to make sure the Chiefs have enough money, or not technically not a pay cut, just moving money down the line essentially. So Travis Kelce was pretty good too, or Travis Swift, whatever you want to call his name. Um, and offensive line, Joe Tooney, Creed Humphrey were both great players from the interior. So was Trey Smith, but he didn't get the acknowledgement. Chris Jones re-signed with the Chiefs on a big deal, so he'll still be there. Both of these linebackers are gone, so neither one will be back. Trent McDuffie was excellent. So was the Jarius Sneed. The State is probably gone. He'll have to sign somewhere else, but McDuffie's great for the future. Offensive depth here, defensive depth, special teams. Tommy Townsend is gone at punter, and all three of these guys return again. All right, let's talk about the Chiefs. Obviously, things went right. They're the only team that is 100% happy after the end of the season. So, what went right, and what do they need to do for the offseason to try to get that three-peat that no one has ever had?
I mean, first thing is make sure you have some better pass catchers on that offense. I think that's something they need to focus on free agency and in the draft. There's quite a few of good receivers in that draft this year, so I'd say try to get one there and get one or two more in free agency. And I mean, if you can get some good receivers on a team that won the Super Bowl without a lot of good receivers, I mean, the three-peat is definitely possible at that point. And so that's what I think that they need to be focusing on.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's the big one for them is pass catchers. They did okay with Travis Kelce, but really no one else. And so you get a top shelf receiver to go along with Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes. They might be favored to do it again. So
yeah, I don't really have too many other answers to what they would need to improve. I do think, though, that the Ravens got a couple of players that are going to make them stronger, so that would be a team to contest, but that's not anything the Chiefs need to do about the Chiefs. And I think that the Chiefs are in the right position to do the right thing. That's smart by Patrick Mahomes to pass the money down and basically strengthen the offense, in my opinion.
Yeah, Ravens adding Derrick Henry. That's a big thing. So
that's a huge. I mean, that's a huge piece.
Yeah. Okay, the Las Vegas Raiders. Aiden O'Connell became the rookie quarterback that started most of the games. Jimmy Garoppolo was benched after about 6 or 7 games, and Aiden O'Connell took over, but not sure he's the answer there still. So Josh Jacobs, Devontae Adams, Jacoby Myers, all these guys looked really good, but they didn't really have a quarterback that get him the ball the best way. And but offensive line was an unmitigated disaster. So we'll come back to that later. Max Crosby, probably the best of one of the definitely top 3 defensive ends, defensive players, edge rushers in the league. Was excellent. Okay, linebackers. Secondary was pretty good actually. Offensive depth, defensive depth, special teams. AJ Cole went to the Pro Bowl for the 3rd year in a row at punter. Probably the best punter in the NFL currently. Here we go. Antonio Pierce hired, made the interim official. So he's now the head coach going forward. Bo Hardigree was the interim offensive coordinator. He was fired and hired as the Tennessee offensive coordinator. And so they need to find a new offensive coordinator. Patrick Graham remains at defensive coordinator. So what about the Raiders, everyone?
That team kind of has me scratching my head when you're going through it. If I shave all of this and leave this, I could sneak in and pretend to be their quarterback. I know that. Anyway,
I didn't see that until now. I can't unsee it.
Yeah, when I said it though, you couldn't get it out of your head. You were like, "Wait a minute, he's right." Man, that's rough, man. Give Max Crosby a chance. Like, the guy's incredible. I think on the right team, it might be early in his career to say this, but on the right scheme, if he stays without injury, that guy could potentially put up astonishing numbers from the way that I've seen him play. But you got to get him in a system where he's not the only player, because I've seen that ruin guys time after time. It just puts so much on you to be giving 110% every time, with no one else doing the same thing. It just does. And other than Max on that team and a kicker or a punter, right? You mentioned a punter went to the Pro Bowl. That's tough. That team's got me scratching my head if I'm their coach. And that's really all I got for them is I hope Max has another great season so they can stay afloat. And maybe that rookie has, astonishing talent. And if not, look out. It's going to be rough in Raiderville.
Well, go ahead, you first.
Oh. I mean, I think I agree with a lot of what you just said, Yancey. Um, First off, to add to it, Jimmy Garoppolo was just released. I think it was today or yesterday, so he's not even on the bench anymore. But I would say that they need to figure out their offense fast because Max Crosby is not going to want to stay on this team for much longer. He's going to want a ring, and he deserves one. And so, I mean, I'm not sure what his contract looks like, how much longer he's on it, but I would imagine if they continue the way he's going, he's going to be like, all right, get me out of here. I'm done. I want to go contend for a title. And they're going to lose him if they don't get him an offense. And so they need to figure that out fast.
I agree. I think the offense has really good pieces. You can't go wrong with Devontae Adams and Josh Jacobs on that team. Those are really good players, and so they need two things. They need a quarterback, figuring out if Aiden O'Connell is the guy that's going to lead them in the future, or if they need to bring in a bench quarterback or a bridge quarterback for a couple of years to figure that out. And secondly, Max Crosby is the only guy on that front seven that's doing any good. And so they need another edge rusher opposite him. They need someone, a linebacker or defensive end, defensive tackle, someone to help that defense. So,
how long do you think you keep Devontae and company if you guys can't string wins together, though?
I think
Same
Devontae
problem
just
with Max.
re-signed. Yeah.
Wow. Oh, okay. So that might help them, but I think you lose all your star power the moment Max leaves.
They just lost Josh Jacobs in free agency. He went to the Packers now, so he's over there.
I didn't hear that. So
well, that was company. That was company, right? So
bye, Josh.
Fonte, and you have Max, and you have this new untested quarterback. If what keeps them there if not wins? So
yeah, it's Josh Jacobs went to the Packers, and then Packers released Aaron Jones, and I think Aaron Jones is going to the Vikings.
The Vikings. We'll talk about that in a second. Yeah.
Man, it has been scrambled up the league in the last couple of days. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's see if we can go a little faster or not. But LA Chargers, Justin Herbert injured for about 3/4 of the way through the season, and he wasn't playing very well anyway before that. Keenan Allen was excellent. Austin Eckler was just released, so that's one thing. Keenan Allen has been excellent his whole career. Offensive line was okay in places and horrible in others. Khalil Mack was excellent, but I think he's gone as well. Eric Kendricks is gone. Kenneth Murray will be there. Pretty good secondary, and all of them I think are coming back. Derwin James is the big piece to keep in place there. Darius Davis was excellent as a rookie returner. Defensive depth here. Special teams. Obviously, all three of these guys are gone. Giff Smith was the interim head coach after Brandon Staley was fired after getting blown out by the Raiders. And so but he was gone. He's hired as the Rams defensive line coach, and now it's Jim Harbaugh's turn. So exciting in LA. Is it a 1-year turnaround, or are we expecting a couple more from Jim Harbaugh first?
I think honestly the only thing I want to say here is a couple things. Khalil Mack actually extended. He signed an extension, so he's staying there. Mike Williams was released today, and then you said Austin Eckler. So, but yep, they still have a good piece in Khalil Mack.
Yeah, for me, Justin Herbert seems to have all the talent in the world to be the best quarterback, but he's never proven it. He's never been able to. He's never won a playoff game. He's never really proven that he can exist among the elite quarterbacks, even though all of his talent says that he can be the best quarterback in the world. But Jim Harbaugh works with quarterbacks. He's done it before. He did it with Alex Smith, made him really good in San Francisco, who then went to Kansas City. He did it with Colin Kaepernick. And he's done it with some of his college quarterbacks. I think pairing those two is a huge piece, and you just got to build around Justin Herbert. But I think the team has a lot of potential. But it's probably going to take a couple years for Jim Harbaugh to get that team at a championship level. But I believe in Jim Harbaugh. He does it everywhere he goes.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot to add. There's not too much that I disagree with you guys, so I don't want to just echo everything. But certainly, I think it will be a couple years, if not a few years, for Jim to put something together there. But I think it will be because of what Jim Harbaugh does ultimately.
Okay. On to the next division. We are going to the NFC East and the Dallas Cowboys, the team that hasn't been back to the NFC Championship game since 1994. Or five, maybe six. Can't remember the year now.
It was
Dak
95.
Prescott was excellent, though, last season, all up until the playoff game, at least. CeeDee Lamb was the best wide receiver in the NFL last year. Jake Ferguson was pretty dang good as a rookie, too. Um, this offensive line was really good with Tyler Smith, and Zach Martin, all pro players. DeMarcus Lawrence and Micah Parsons make a pretty fearsome team, two defensive and edge rushers there. The linebacker core really struggled, though. Injuries was a big reason why. Deron Bland set the record for interception returns for touchdowns in a single season, so he looks pretty good there for a while. Offensive depth, Kavonte Turpin, Hunter Lepke went to the Pro Bowl. Defensive depth here. Special teams, both Brandon Aubrey and Brian Anger, the kicker and the punter, were the best in their respective division, in their respective conferences at their positions. And Dan Quinn is gone. He was hired as the Commanders' head coach, so they'll need a new defensive coordinator. All right, what about the Cowboys, everyone?
I'll just say that I said from the beginning of the year in our preview that I thought that the Cowboys were going to do great during the year and then they would choke game one in the playoffs, and that's exactly what happened because they have that history. So what do they need to focus on this year is how to win a freaking playoff game. That's what they need to focus on because they have all the talent they need to get to the playoffs. They're probably going to do it again because they are a good team. They just need to figure out how to do it on the biggest stages. And I don't know what to do or what to say for them to do that. They just need to do it.
Yeah, that's so tough because I agree with that. They have the talent on this team that they could win a Super Bowl. They're that good, uh, but some mentally they need to overcome something, and it's hard to say what it is or how to do it.
Mhm.
I don't know.
Well, their offensive coordinator that they fired looked like the guy from X-Files, so maybe now that he's gone and not looking for his abducted sister, that'll be fine. David Duchovny, I think. Anyway, I totally agree with you guys. They have all the talent in the world, but they seem to choke when it counts, and that's tough to get over. I dealt with that being a Colts fan in the early 2000s. It was like that. It was like, what the other than defense, what don't we have? But I mean, even with defense, the Cowboys seem to have it all over. So I it's a matter of playing big when it's big, and they've struggled there. And Dak's incredible. He pulls through. He plays pretty well until the playoffs, and so it's a struggle, man. That's tough, and it's a team you want to do well because all the stars that are on there, and it looks like they will, and then they don't. It's tough. I agree with you guys there.
Okay. Now, one of the most aggressive teams in free agency so far, the New York Giants. Um, yeah, it wasn't Daniel Jones that took the majority of the snaps this year. It was who they call cutlets. Tommy DeVito, the rookie undrafted player from Illinois. A lot of things went wrong when he had to take the majority of the snaps. So Saquon Barkley is gone. Obviously, the best player on their team the last few years. So it's a little bit of rebuild in that area. Offensive line. This was without a doubt the worst offensive line in the NFL last year. So Andrew Thomas is a really good player, but he was injured for a lot of last year. But this was a horrible offensive line last year. Dexter Lawrence is great at defensive tackle, probably the best player on the team now that Saquon Barkley's gone. Pretty good. Pretty good linebackers and a fairly okay secondary last year. Offensive depth here includes Daniel Jones, who is on the team for a couple more years, I think, right? Contract wise, I don't know. And defensive depth here. Special teams. and your coaching staff. These two, Brian Dable and Darton Martindale, hated each other. They did not coach well together, and Brian Dable fired Don Martindale after the season. So they needed to do new defensive coordinator. He was the coach of the year 2 years ago, and then obviously struggled on a team last year. So who are the Giants, especially now that Saquon Barkley is gone and you're starting over and you're being really aggressive in free agency?
I think they got to figure out the quarterback situation this offseason, because they gave Daniel Jones a big payday last offseason, and then what happened? I mean, he got injured. Is it something that, like, are they still committed to him? Do they want to just say, this is your offense, go for it? Or are they just going to be like, well, we're going to pay you still because we have to, but we're also going to draft someone? I don't know. What are they going to do? And is it going to make sense? Because I'm not sure it will.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Go ahead.
I think they're in danger. That's going to be a rough team to watch if you're a Giants fan next year, and maybe for 3 years. I don't see a lot to work with, and especially with Saquon leaving, that's tough, man. That's tough. I feel kind of the same way as Cody. Like, you just throw your hands in the air and say, what do you want me to do with these guys? These guys are my team, the Bad News Bears. All right, thanks. And I mean, the guy you blew the most money on gets hurt. That's rough, because you almost never see those guys come back better than they were before they got hurt. The seasons off are never really great for guys. So I agree with Cody. It's going to be tough.
There's a neck injury from Daniel Jones that was actually deemed pretty dang serious, and so
Yeah.
I think like Peyton Manning serious, back when he missed a season and a half almost, and so he may be back, but who knows if he'll be the same guy, and who knows if they want the same guy? They need someone better. So yeah, I don't really know what they need to focus on, because they seem to be focusing everywhere, especially on the defense right now in free agency, and maybe that's a good place to start. But so okay. On to the Philadelphia Eagles, who were really good at the beginning of the year and then became the worst team in the NFL about 3/4 of the way through. So whatever happened to them, we don't know. But Jalen Hurts was pretty good. He went to the Pro Bowl, but didn't play very well down the stretch. DeAndre Swift is gone. AJ Brown is there, though. Those were two of the better players. This offensive line, the best offensive line in the NFL last year. 4 of them were all pros. Jason Kelsey retired. The other 3 are still there, though. And so still a really good offensive line. Pretty good defensive line. Fletcher Cox retired, though. And Hassan Reddick, really good on the edge rusher. This secondary was horrible last year. Even though Big Play Slay was there, he didn't make many big plays, and the other ones were tough to deal with too. Offensive depth, a lot of these guys have to leave because of contract situations. Defensive depth, Jake Elliott was excellent at kicker. And here we go. Nick Sirianni had to make some decisions because his job was on the line. And so he told the owner that I'm going to fire both my coordinators because we really struggled the second half of the season. So Brian Johnson was fired. Matt Patricia was the interim defensive coordinator because he essentially demoted his Sean Desai, the previous defensive coordinator, and then fired both of them. So he fired pretty much all of his coaches because it's the only way he could to keep his job. So what's going on with the Eagles?
I don't know. I think right now I'm more just looking at some of these stats and some things I wasn't really fully aware of. Did you realize that they're on their fourth down, like for the defense, the fourth down conversion percentage was over 50%. So their opponents would make a fourth down conversion over half the time. And so I'm not sure if that was coaching or if that was player personnel talent. I mean, they have a good defensive line, so I don't know what it is, but I think as it's already been done, the coaching changes. I think the coaching is really what needed to change. I think the talent is there, at least was there, and they're gonna have to kind of replace some of those that left or is retired, and Nick Sirianni, I think, has one shot to get the right coaching in, and if it doesn't work out, he's gonna be finding another job.
Here's my spiel philosophy about the Eagles, what I think happened. And you get coaches who are innovative, right? Who do something new that a lot of other teams aren't prepared for a year or two. You see it happen every now and then, where a coach like Matt LaFleur or Kyle Shanahan or someone like that brings this new gimmick to the offense that players haven't seen before. Obviously, the tush push was one of them that the Eagles had done, and a couple other things that seemed to really be working the Eagles' way. A lot of focus on a running game from a quarterback position and from everything else, and it really worked last year or 2 years ago for the Eagles. But then defenses adjust. Teams know you're in the NFL. Teams will adjust to that, and the problem isn't the mark of a good coach isn't bringing innovative offense, isn't bringing innovative things. It's being able to say, okay, this went wrong. Holy crap, now what do I do? And being able to adjust is the mark of a good coach. And Nick Sirianni hasn't done that yet. And that's what he needs to do because now defenses know how to play it and he has to figure out how to do it.
Yeah, I think Jalen Hurts hurting his finger had a lot more influence on his play than people thought it would or believed how injured he was. I think with the offseason for that to get better, we won't really see that affecting him, I hope. But I think that's what kind of got them out of the big games is big players not playing the way they needed them to. And I think missing Cleese or Kelsey or however you say his name is going to be a big deal. If you don't get a solid rookie or a solid veteran in there to fill that spot in the middle, you're going to see that offense kind of slowly fall apart if those three guys don't come together to continue to play well. But other than that, I think that's all I really got. I think they need to shore up the offensive line and maybe a few key pieces on defense to make sure that they don't just fall apart mid-season.
Okay. Over to the Washington Commanders, another aggressive player in free agency right now. Sam Howell, he seemed like the guy for about 3/4 of the season and then really fell apart at the end. So is he still the guy? We don't know yet. These offensive weapons were pretty sad last year. Terry McLaurin was the best one, as he usually is. Offensive line wasn't much better. They were pretty bad. Defensive line is usually the strength of this team, especially the two interior guys were both very good. Linebackers were middle of the pack to the end of the pack. Kendall Fuller was excellent at cornerback. Emmanuel Forbes is a really good rookie. So a lot of good players there. Offensive depth here, defensive depth here, special teams, and obviously these three guys are gone. Ron Rivera was fired. Eric Bieniemy is now in college. Jeff Zagana was fired. He already fired Jack Del Rio midway through the season. Jeff Zagana took over, and he's been fired. Now Dan Quinn is in as head coach. They've been very aggressive in free agency, especially on offense. So what are we talking about with Commanders? What went wrong? What do they continue to need to focus on? They grabbed Austin Eckler, I believe, is that from the Chargers. He's one of the players. I think they also grabbed another running back, but I can't remember exactly who. And they grabbed a couple of the guys. They've been very aggressive in free agency so far.
I'm not sure who the other running back was. I know that today they signed Bobby Wagner, so they got another linebacker, right. And then obviously a lot more. But and that's probably their biggest need, their defense, and then they have a good head coach who has a defensive mind now. I was looking at their stats as well. Their opponents would score an average of 30 points a game, and so I mean you're not going to win games when your opponent is winning or scoring 30 points. So I think that they're doing the right thing as far as focusing on the defense right now.
Yeah. I think, they need to figure out again the similar questions to some of these other teams. Is Sam Howell the guy? He looked like it for part of the season, and then, like I said, he kind of fell apart down the end. But agreed that the defense needs a lot of work. Bobby Wagner obviously has a lot of history with Dan Quinn back in their Seattle days, and so that was a pretty good signing there, I thought. And so, that's where the focus needs to be, as well as giving Howell some weapons. Eckler helps.
Yeah, definitely. I think this is going to be an offensive struggle for them, like an uphill battle, just in general for the Commanders, because I don't see a lot of the things I would want to build a team on there. They are collecting some pieces. Wagner's a great addition, um, but I just don't see a ton of firepower that stacks up well in the league that they're in. That's it. So I think it's going to be an uphill battle for them.
We're halfway there. So let's see if we can get the other 8 teams in about 20 minutes if possible. So that's our goal. Starting with the Houston Texans. Cody, got to call you out again here. Cody called the Texans to win that division when pretty much no one else believed that, and they did. It helped that no one else in the division was any good, but the Texans were good. CJ Stroud in particular, offensive rookie of the year. He looks every bit the franchise quarterback and just a really, really good last year. Nico Collins was excellent in his second year. Devin Singletary is gone. The Texans have been the most aggressive team in free agency, by the way. And so bringing a lot of guys on. Laramie Tunsil still probably the best offensive tackle in the NFL, and he continues to be that. The rest of the offensive line was only so-so, though. Will Anderson, the third overall pick, was also equally excellent. Their two draft picks in the first round were both wonderful additions to that team. Linebackers, and here's your secondary, who were pretty good. Jimmy Ward, Derek Stingley, Steven Nelson, Jalen Petre, all very good. Offensive depth was pretty good. Defensive depth was pretty good as well. Special teams, and D'Amico Ryans deserved every bit of all of the accolades that went his way in his first year, bringing that team back to the playoffs in his first year. So what are we talking about the Texans? Is it a really bright future, or is it a one-year wonder?
That's the question, isn't it? I mean, we see a lot of teams that have these one hit wonder things. I'm more inclined to believe this is a good future for them, and they're doing really well at stocking their team as well. I mean, in my opinion, adding Joe Mixon is a great add. He's a great running back, especially when he's healthy. And I already forgot who, but I think they've added some other offensive talent, but I don't remember who. So I think this is here to stay. I think that they're gonna progressively get better. Whether or not they become Super Bowl contenders is another question, and that is just to be seen.
Yeah. One of their other big additions was Danielle Hunter, the linebacker, that they added in free agency as well. So they're doing a lot of, and they have a lot of money. And so that's what they're doing. They're using their money wisely to build their team with experienced veterans. I'm sure they're going to draft well too. So I agree with Cody that this is a team that can continue to rise and can continue to take over some of the AFC stuff.
Yeah, I think CJ's a really good player, and I think a lot of the Texans' success will kind of flow through him. But I think it does look good for them. They have drafted well, and they have a better team than I've seen out of them in quite some time. Kind of since they joined the league, they've had decent offense, or I'm sorry, decent defenses with like one or two guys on offense. And now it feels like they're becoming a more balanced team. And I think that's going to work in their favor. And they do have a coach that I think can really work with that. And I think we'll see moderate success in the next couple of years.
Yeah. Okay. And heading over to the Indianapolis Colts, who I don't know about Yancey because I know you're a fan, but none of the three of us thought this was going to be a team that was going to do any good this year, and they surprised us by almost getting to the playoffs last year. Gardner Minshew actually went to the Pro Bowl. I don't think he really deserved that, but I think it was a lot of players dropping off. But Gardner Minshew did well in his 1 year filling in for the injured Anthony Richardson. He's gone. He signed with someone else. I can't remember who. So he won't be there next year. Zach Moss is also gone, signed with someone else. And Michael Pittman should have probably gone to the Pro Bowl. He was excellent last year. Really good interior offensive line with Quentin Nelson and Ryan Kelly. The outside positions do leave a lot to be desired, though. DeForest Buckner has been great since the day he arrived in Indianapolis, and that continues in that defensive tackle. Zaire Franklin led the NFL in tackles last year. That went unnoticed. So really good middle linebacker. The secondary was actually fairly good across the board. Offensive depth here. Jonathan Taylor, I think, will finally become again that lead back, unless someone knows something I don't. So we'll see about that. Anthony Richardson, though, is the future. So we'll see how that goes. Defensive depth here, special teams, and all three of these guys return. So why did the Colts do better than the rest of us thought that they would do last year? I remember saying in particular, this is the second worst team in the NFL next to the Cardinals, and that wasn't the case at all. They were right there competing for the playoffs all season.
I think Shane Steichen really impressed. I think that's where it all started. Because while they have talent, they didn't. I didn't expect them to gel as well as they did. So I think Shane Steichen and his coaching staff really put in a lot of effort to make the team look the way they did. And that is what made them who they are. That's what made them impressive. I think that having an offseason after this year will give Shane a lot of good time to make this team a formidable team. I think that that's my prediction right now, at least. I think that Jonathan Taylor will reprise his stardom kind of idea. I think Anthony Richardson will step in and go through the whole season this time, probably without getting injured, and we'll have a great year. I think it's all out back on the coaching staff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. My question still sits with Anthony Richardson. He couldn't stay healthy last year, and he did look good when he was in there. He looked like a rookie, but he had some really good moments. And I just I want to see that kid do well. I want to see him have good sustained success, and I want to see if that kid can play in the NFL, because I hope he gets another shot and this year and stays healthy, and what that team can be with him at the helm.
Yeah, I think if they get the offense clicking, that's a team that you can build around your offense again, because they're kind of middle of the road on defense, in my opinion. There's nothing that stands out to me as like, yeah, we can shut teams down, and this is the type of offense we need to blow them out. I don't really see that because of the lackings that I see in the defense. But I do think that this is a team that if you get the offense clicking, you can really have some success and probably get into the playoffs next year, as long as everybody continues to gel. And that's what I think. I think they can get to the playoffs as long as they play well and they get a couple of pieces on defense that really back them up.
Okay. All right, on to the Jacksonville Jaguars. They won the division 2 years ago and finished third last year. There's still a lot of questions about this guy, Trevor Lawrence. He did really good 2 years ago. Last year, he dropped back down to the middle of the pack. And so is he the answer? He will be for foreseeable future because of the contract that he was given, but can he be the guy? Evan Ingram was excellent at tight end. Calvin Ridley actually left the Jaguars, joined the Titans today, and so that was a surprise to a lot of people, including me. But Travis Etienne is good at running back there. I don't know why that guy's sitting there. Don't worry about him. But this offensive line was pretty bad, honestly. Maybe because they had a sixth guy. I don't know.
Yeah, give the man a job. He's hanging out outside the door and everything.
The defensive line was okay. Trayvon Walker hasn't been that number 1 overall pick they hoped he would be. Josh Allen, though, had the best season of his career at the edge rusher. So he finally showed up to be the guy that they hoped he would be. These other 2 linebackers are fairly good, too. The secondary was okay. Offensive depth, defensive depth. Again, a long snapper in the Pro Bowl. I don't know what anyone wants to say about that. And Mike Caldwell, the defensive coordinator, was fired. So they need to find a new defensive coordinator. Jaguars, everyone.
This is a team I think you expect to be better than they've performed. They haven't lived up to necessarily what people thought Lawrence was going to be. And I don't think that team overall is defensively as competitive as they need to be against the other teams in the division, even though they're in a crap division. I'm not saying that they're in the toughest division or anything, but I don't think their defense is as competitive as the Jaguars have been in history. Normally, you expect to see a tough defense in Jacksonville, and that hasn't been the case the last like 2 or 3 years, I think. And I think they're going to continue to struggle and be bottom of the middle, if not the bottom of the standings next year.
I think I expect this team to be better. I think that they need some help on the offensive line, and they need to give Trevor Lawrence a little bit more help. The defense for sure as well. So, I mean, they do need help in a lot of places, but this was a team that most of us, except Cody, expected to win this division last year. And I still have those kind of expectations for them to be right there and compete for the AFC South next year, barring any big time losses or trades or anything like that.
I think I need to eat my words a little bit here, but also show that I might be right somewhere. So let me explain. So I said that Trevor Lawrence will never be a top 10 quarterback, I think is what I had said. I think it's pretty obvious that he's probably top 10 overall, but I think that he is becoming slowly the new Kirk Cousins, if you will. Kirk Cousins is really, really good, but he is never able to move to that elite status. He's never been an elite quarterback. And I think Trevor Lawrence might be that kind of guy. Someone who's reliable, will probably be the Jaguars franchise quarterback for a long time. I don't know if he's ever going to be elite. I don't know if he's ever going to be the sole reason they win the games. I don't think he can ever be that person. But he could be a top 10 quarterback, number 10, number 9 maybe, but he's not going to be that guy.
I might agree with that. Yeah. So let's go to the Tennessee Titans. Obviously, a lot of change coming to Tennessee. Starting with this guy, he took over for Ryan Tannehill about a third of the way through the season, and proved a lot that he might be the guy. At least in his limited time, he showed a lot of fight, showed a lot of heart. He was a little rookie, but he looked pretty good. Most of these guys are going to be gone. DeAndre Hopkins might still be there, but he's not the same D Hop from 10 years ago. Offensive line was a disaster, but they have some good pieces in place, and they need to find some other ones. Jeffrey Simmons and Danico Autry were both very good at the defensive line. That's probably the strength of this team and the defense. Pretty good linebackers, and a secondary that was just awful. So Derrick Henry, obviously, he and Tyjae Spears split the exact number of snaps, but Derrick Henry faded through the last part of the season, and Tyjae Spears took the majority, and so that's why he's here, but he's not here anymore. He's gone. So is Ryan Tannehill. So a lot of things changing. Defensive depth here as well. Special teams, all three of these guys are gone, and bringing in the Bengals offensive coordinator. Can't remember his name off the top of my head right now, but he's going to be the new Titans coach. And a lot of things changing in Tennessee. It's essentially a full rebuild, starting all over. Where do they start? Is it a good place to start for Tennessee?
As a Colts fan, I'm glad to see their roster, and especially right after looking at the Jags. I think they're going to have a lot of struggles. Really, I don't see anybody in there that's not leaving their team that stands out as an all-star or an incredible player. Like you said, D-Hop's not the same as he used to be. He was one of those names that would stand out to me for sure. He's a legend, but he's not the same guy he used to be, and that's going to affect them. And I don't see. I mean, they fired their entire coaching staff on top of it. So unless they get lucky with a roll of the dice because they kind of push the button on this team, I see a tough road ahead for the next 3 to 5 years, really just trying to put the pieces together. That's not to say they won't have any success, but I see a lot of troubles.
Mhm. I agree. They need a lot of things. They need an offensive line. They need now weapons, including a running back to help Will Levis, however say it. I think it's Levis, but they need to support that quarterback and see what they have with him, and you can't do that if you don't have people. And so that's that's what you need to do, is surround him with a line and weapons. That's what I would focus on if I'm Tennessee. Your defense is okay, keep it the way it is, and put all of your focus on that offense.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that. The first thing I want to say is I think Will Levis needs to learn not to put mayonnaise in his coffee. That's just disgusting. You know, like I don't know. That's just no.
Some
And
bullying is good. He should have been bullied out of that by now. Give me his Twitter handle and I'll start. Anyway.
Yeah. I was also going to say, I think it's interesting how Derrick Henry threw 2 passes last season, and both of those passes were touchdowns. My only question is I think for the running game, they get rid of Derrick Henry, good for their team. They have Tyjae Spears. I thought they also had someone named Hassan Haskins from Michigan from a few years ago, but is he on the practice squad now or something? I don't know what's going on there.
I think I had him in there on the offensive depth. I go through it pretty quickly, but
Okay, I didn't see it, but
yeah.
I guess I'd be curious to see if they want to do a Tyjae Spears, Hassan Haskins kind of pairing, if they want to get another running back or what, or if they feel good there. But either way, I kind of agree with you guys that they're just going to need a lot of help, and I don't think they should expect them to be contending for a title, in the next year or two, and be focusing on just kind of rebuilding.
I looked back and I didn't have them in there. These are the 53 players that played the most snaps last year. So it's not necessarily the future. It's the players that played the most snaps on offense and defense. And Hassan Haskins apparently didn't make that cut. So, yeah.
All right.
So, okay, on to the last division, starting with the Chicago Bears. Oh boy, what are we going to do here? We haven't heard yet. There's a lot of rumors that this guy could be traded, Justin Fields. I have some thoughts that I'll share in a little bit, but anyway, Justin Fields was there and he played up and down is the best way to describe him, and really up and really down. So a lot of stuff there. DJ Moore though was excellent. He proved really valuable in that trade that they took, getting that trading away from the number 1 pick to get him. Offensive line was pretty bad. Defensive line was even worse. Linebackers were great, though. Both of these guys were very good. Both additions from last year. Jalen Johnson has ascended now. He's improved every year, and now he can clearly be named one of the best cornerbacks in the NFL, and over in Chicago, with a pretty good supporting cast around him. This is actually quietly one of the best secondaries in the NFL. Offensive depth. Defensive depth here. Montez Sweat came over in a trade and did good enough to go to the Pro Bowl, even coming over half the season. So he'll be more of a starter next year. And special teams, and they fired Luke Getsy, the offensive coordinator, so they're going to need a new offensive coordinator this year. So what's going on in Chicago? If I could start, because I want to. No, actually, I don't want to start. Someone else start.
Oh, okay. I'll go. I have a bold take on what the Bears should do, and it's what I'm sticking with. They should keep Justin Fields. I do not think Caleb Williams is going to be as good as people think he's going to be. So I don't think they should go for him. So keep Justin Fields, and I'm not sure who their quarterback coach is right now. Might be, I forget his name, but yeah, I don't know who it is, but I think they need to get an additional quarterbacks coach in there to help Justin Fields grow. I still hold the belief, as opposed to a lot of other quarterbacks who haven't really met their expectations, that Justin Fields still has that potential to be a really good quarterback. I do see it. I think that they need to get someone in there with some more weapons and a good coach to help him grow more, and I think they can develop him better. I'd probably give him one more year, but I think he has that potential. But for all intents and purposes, stay away from Caleb Williams. I really do not think that he's going to be good. In fact, he'll probably run the franchise to the ground.
Yeah. So let me add an additional bold take, Cody. I agree with you. Um, and Dustin would probably be screaming at us, and maybe he will when he watches this. But look, if any of you have seen Draft Day with Kevin Costner, um, I think it's on Netflix, and it's Kevin Costner plays the general manager of the Cleveland Browns, and they have the first overall pick, and they're deciding who to pick. And there's this quarterback seems like the best player in the world, but there's just something about him that Kevin Costner doesn't like, and it reminded me so much of this situation right now. And I draw a lot of parallels with this. I would stay away from Caleb Williams too. There's something about this kid. He has all the talent in the world. He if but there's something. He seems to be more concerned about the money he's going to make, about the brand that he can create, more than actually being on the field. And look, a lot of quarterbacks have done there's a big difference. You can have in college, you have all the talent in the world will get you a Heisman Trophy, will get you a national championship game. You see it with Caleb Williams, you've seen it with Tim Tebow, you've seen it with all these guys that have literally all the talent in the world. But when you get to the NFL, it's different because everyone has all the talent in the world now. And so you have to have something different. You have to have the discipline. You have to have the want to. You need to be able and want to improve every single day, every single game, every single season. And I just don't see that yet in Caleb Williams. If he proves me wrong, that's great. But I would stick with Justin Fields too and build around him. That's what I would do.
Amen.
So Caleb Williams is the quarterback out of USC, right?
Yeah.
They basically said, well, there's 32 teams and one me, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I remember a quarterback out of USC named Matt Leinart. And he was like really good at doing cocaine and getting caught doing stuff he shouldn't do. But when it came to football, he basically shit a brick when it was time to perform. And I don't remember Matt Leinart having a season where I was like, Matt Leinart, like I liked him in college. He was good. But I think a lot of what you guys are talking to, like the prima donna syndrome before you've even played a game in the NFL, is it smacks guys in the face. When you're the biggest guy in the room and nobody can mess with you, but then you get put in a room with giants, it messes with you. And when you get hit the first time and it rings your bell in a way that it hasn't been rung before, it really shows the character of what type of person you're dealing with. And from what I've seen, like, it's honestly the guys that I like are the guys that care about the team. And so I think we all three agree that dude might actually be more of a problem than a solution for the Bears, at least. Send him to North Carolina, where he can be the only guy. And when they screw up and they can't get a single win, it's his fault, and see what that does. Because you either sink or swim in that situation.
And so we'll see if Dustin throws rocks at us or something, or if he agrees with us.
Or something.
So we'll see. Okay, on to the Detroit Lions. A lot of us said, hey, these are the Lions. They've been bad for 110 years. And so, but last year, this was one of the best teams in the NFL. They went to the NFC Championship game, and they returned a lot of their players. And so let's talk about the Lions. Jared Goff, quietly one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL last year. Jahmyr Gibbs, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam Laporta, really good collection of weapons. David Montgomery is gone because they saw what they have in Jahmyr Gibbs. So that's one thing to keep your eye on. Pretty good offensive line as well, especially Frank Ragnow and Penei Sewell. Aiden Hutchinson, kind of like what's his name from the Raiders, Max Crosby, one of the better defensive ends, edge rushers there. Linebackers were okay. Secondary needed some help. They weren't very good last year. Offensive depth here was fairly good. They helped in a lot of situations. Defensive depth had Jalen Reeves-Maybin, a good special teams player, and special teams here. And here we go. All three of these guys return after both of these coordinators had finalist interviews for the head coaching jobs. Both of them returned. That's a pretty big deal for the Lions. So on to the Lions. Is this easily the number one team in the NFC North, or are they going to have a lot of competition with the Green Bay and Minnesota? Or is this the Lions division to lose for the next several years in a row?
I'll go real quick. I think this is the Lions' division to lose, especially with the changes that we're seeing in the other teams going on. I think it's theirs to win with all the returning they're coming back with. I think they need to focus this offseason on their secondary. I got to take a moment and say though, Brian Branch was the star of that secondary. He was amazing. I got to ask, there was a green thing sticking on his helmet the whole season. I had no idea what that was. And it was bothering me. What is that thing? I don't know, but okay. Anyway, it was bothering me. So anyway, but Brian Branch was a stud, standout. I can't say the whole secondary was bad. He was great, but everyone else, they needed to figure out something there. I think that's what they need to focus on. But if they get that figured out, then hey, maybe they can make it the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I would agree. The Lions are on my short list of teams that can represent the NFC in the Super Bowl next year. The Lions, the Cowboys, and the 49ers are pretty much my list of teams that can probably go to the Super Bowl from the NFC next year. And the Lions returned most everyone from last year. And like you said, Cody, they need to focus on defense. That's where they struggled last year. Their offense was fantastic. Strengthen that defense, and you've got a complete team.
Yeah, not much to add there. As long as that running back stays healthy, I think a lot hinges on him staying healthy because he's a big part of their offense and shoring up the defense. So I don't really have much to add to the conversation for them. And I think they're a really good team. Honestly, I do got to say that.
Okay, two more teams left. Starting with the Green Bay Packers, who surprised a lot of us. This guy surprised a lot of us. The second half of the season, he was the best quarterback in the NFL, quarterback rating wise. He was better than Brock Purdy in the quarterback rating from game 11 on. And so he has shown that maybe they have another quarterback in Green Bay that can play for the next 15 years, for the third time in a row. Obviously AJ Dillon is going to be the guy there now. But this collection of weapons was sad, but they still made it to the playoffs. The offensive line wasn't much better. I'm not sure how this team did it, to tell you the truth. Kenny Clark, though, was really good at defensive tackle. Linebackers were all excellent, all four of them across the board. Keyshawn Nixon went to the Pro Bowl as a returner, but also played starting cornerback. And then Aaron Jones is gone. He went to the division rival Vikings after the Packers wouldn't give him money. So that's kind of an FU to the Packers. And then defensive depth here, special teams, coaching staff. Joe Barry was finally fired after the end of the season after about 3 years of saying, hey, you should fire Joe Barry. Finally, he did. Matt LaFleur proved that he can be as good of a coach without Aaron Rodgers as he was with him. So Matt LaFleur is not the problem. So where's Green Bay?
I think they need to focus on just their offensive weapons. They have a couple good spots. I think it's kind of similar to the Chiefs. Get some good pass catchers, free agency in the draft, and then just kind of trim up the sides of everything. And I mean, you got a good product there in Green Bay. I think you just got to add a few ingredients, trim up the sides, make it look a little prettier, and you're good to go.
They added a running back, right? Who was it? Josh Jacobs, right?
Yes, Josh Jacobs. Thank you.
So that's huge because my worry was I didn't think AJ Dillon is a guy who can carry an offense by himself at running back, but adding Josh Jacobs in is huge. I think this is another playoff team next year, and they're going to go back and forth with Detroit for that division title.
Yeah, I think if you keep those young guys healthy, same as Detroit, I think this is a team that will have a lot of the same issues as the Detroit, and it's whichever team figures it out in that division will kind of pull ahead and do the best out of those two. As far as like things to fix, there's really not a ton. I think I agree with Cody that for the most part, this is a well put together team. There's just a few tweaks to be made, but you don't want to overstep anywhere and make a big mistake. But I think Jacobs is a great help to that offense and an amazing player. And kudos to whoever got him on that roster.
Okay, last team, the Minnesota Vikings. A lot of things going to change here too. Kirk Cousins being one of them. He is no longer the quarterback of the Vikings. As Cody said, he's always been one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. Maybe not elite status, but a lot of teams would kill for a quarterback like Kirk Cousins, and the Vikings apparently are not one of them. TJ Hawkinson was excellent at tight end. Justin Jefferson was hurt for a lot of the year. Otherwise, he would have been yellow too. He's excellent there. TJ Hawkinson as well. Offensive line had its struggles, but the two offensive tackles are both very good. The middle is where the problem is. Defensive line was awful. Linebackers were good with Daniel Hunter, but guess what? He's gone. So now they're bad again in the other positions. Secondary was horrendous, except that this guy right here. Harrison Smith still continues to be good. The rest of them were bad. CJ Ham, a good fullback that went to the Pro Bowl. They had three other quarterbacks: Nick Mullins, Joshua Dobbs, and rookie Jaron Hall. One of those guys may be the guy, or they'll draft someone, or they'll find someone. I don't know who's going to be the quarterback there. Defensive depth here, special teams: Andrew DePaul at long snapper, and your coaching staff returns intact. So, Vikings, take us home.
I think of what you said. Like, yeah, you're like, well, here's the defensive line. They're good, but with Daniel Hunter, but guess what? He's gone. I think of that, and then Kirk Cousins gone. I'm just thinking, oh no, we suck again for the Vikings. But in reality, I'm curious what they're going to be doing with QB. I know that they signed Sam Darnold. So I mean, I can't believe that that's who they're going with though. So I'm sure he'll be a backup to someone, but I'm not sure. They got him and Jaron Hall, I think, is who they have. So that doesn't seem very good option to me. So I'm really curious to see what they're going to do in quarterback, but that's what they need to focus on because Sam Darnold is not the option they want to go to after Kirk Cousins. That's just not pretty.
I really like Kirk Cousins, and I feel bad for Justin Jefferson, the best wide receiver in the NFL with absolutely no one to throw him the ball. So, yeah.
I think you give this Dobbs kid a shot. He's big. He's quarterback sized. He's pretty quick. And maybe, instead of, it just depends on if you can afford to pour money into a quarterback and if you can find a guy to play the spot. I don't know that they're going to. Kirk Cousins does have big shoes to fill. But you've got to have a playmaker to get your playmaker the ball, and that being Jefferson. And if you can't shore up that quarterback spot and know that you got somebody that can deliver him the ball, that's going to be a lot of trouble in Minnesota. But overall, I think this team has potential. But if they don't shore up the quarterback spot and protect their weapons, that's going to be trouble. Just for Laura, I got to say Vikings, she was.
Okay. All right. Well, that finishes our NFL review. The next time we'll probably cover the NFL is either whether we do a mock draft as a group or when we cover the NFL draft. So that's late next month. Next week, we'll be covering the NCAA tournament. We'll be filling out brackets and we'll be looking at who's going to, we'll be doing some predictions and analysis and things like that before the technically we'll be in the first four next week. And so the day before the NCAA tournament really kicks off. So it's a really good place to start. So
Sweet.
That'll be fun next year. Next week, NCAA tournament all the way and filling out brackets, some of the best times of the year with the NCAA tournament. So,
all right. Until then, we'll see you.
Okay.
You guys.
Bye.